All right, good evening. It's 6:05 p.m. It's Thursday, December 4th, and I'm calling to order the Groton Board of Education's Communications Committee special meeting. This is all remote. In attendance, we have board members Adrian Johnson, Jen White, and myself, Jay Whiteloff, and we have communications coordinator Rebecca Bias and Assistant Superintendent Anne Marie online. And let's see. First order of business is to review the meeting minutes of September 11th. Did anyone have any corrections or clarifications that they wanted to bring up?
I don't.
Okay, no, I'm set. Oh,
Yeah, I thought they were pretty comprehensive. And so thank you for that. The next will be Rebecca's communications update.
Good evening. Good to connect with you all. Again, it's hard to believe here we are in December. I'm going to try to share my screen. And as usual, I just put together sort of a short presentation to kind of follow along the agenda and guide our conversation. So what I did structure a little differently this time. I looked to align a lot of the items I was highlighting or discussing in terms of some recent efforts and initiatives underneath the strategies of the communications plan. So we can see how this works, and we'll give it a go. So strategy 1 in the plan is engaging the community and understanding the mission of the district through robust internal and external communications. So some highlights on some things we've been doing and that you may have heard about some of these and not others. We did create a district dashboard on the website, which is highlighted on the homepage and is a great landing spot for linking to all of the different district assessments at the state level. And they're all structured there very nicely so people can click through and find everything in one place that they might be looking for on the district. And then we have had certainly, I think, a little bit more than normal maybe going on sort of the legislative front, if you will, with the government shutdown recently. So we were making sure that we were alerting families and making sure they were aware of resources or impacts to the school district. There were certainly questions around the school lunch and breakfast program and whether or not that was impacted as it stood at the start of the school year, and would there be any shifts there? So we were making sure families knew that everything was status quo there. We were highlighting that free and reduced lunch, though, that very well might have been a resource for families who were impacted by the federal government shutdown. And so we were making sure we were getting that messaging out. And then we did have, obviously, Election Day. We had the athletic field referendum. We weren't allowed as the school district to advocate for that or persuade folks to vote against it. But we were allowed to publicly share the informational text that they would see on the ballot. And we were allowed to do that on our public-facing system. So any system that anybody in the community could access. So that meant we could post it on the website. We could post it on our Facebook page. We could not send it out via Parent Square because that is a more limited platform that is only including our parents and isn't widespread access across the community. A lot of student assessments and information going out about that, including, I think it was the day of our last meeting, we sent out SBAC and NGSS reports from last year. Anne Marie has sent out a lot of communications explaining the different assessments that happen across the district from literacy and math and things happening on that front. And a huge focus and priority for us, especially the start of this school year has been strengthening our attendance communications. We've really been doing a lot, as have all of the schools on their pushes to support and decrease absenteeism levels in the schools. But to support that from a communication standpoint, we've been streamlining templates, we've been creating district templates, we've been really working on our letters and messaging and adjusting the tone of those. So it takes more of a supportive partnership approach to working with families and parents than a compliance accusatory approach that can be scary and threatening. So we've been doing a tremendous amount on that. At the end of October, we sent out student attendance reports. Every student in the district got a student attendance report that showed them which tier they're in terms of attendance, meaning if they're on track, at risk, or potentially chronically absent. And those seem to be well received. It showed the number of absences year to date. And then just before Thanksgiving, we did a message from Superintendent Austin that highlighted the holiday season and the schedule, and encouraging folks, to try not to tack on extra days. We get a lot of time off around the holidays, particularly at Christmas time. So, we wanted to remind everyone of the schedule and encourage them to, still make attendance a priority right up until we leave for winter break. We're working with all of the schools on a lot of supports around attendance, and again, how our communications can be supporting what they're doing with their outreach to families, and making sure we're consistent across the district, and having while they each want to take their own tone and approaches and some of the things they're doing, with some of the district level letters and things that need to go out to families when, particularly if they're at risk, we definitely want some similarities there. And then our other big project this fall has been Impact Aid, which I'm sure you've heard a lot about. So we've certainly been sharing a lot with families about the importance of Impact Aid to the district's annual budget. But what's really exciting this year for me, for Impact Aid, is where we are with our completion rates this year based on our outreach. And it really shows growth in using our different communications platforms. So last year, our total Impact Aid completion was 66%, and that included electronic and paper forms. As of this morning, our Impact Aid completion just online is 73%. And, there's a couple schools that are very high, over 80%, and some that are in the mid-70 range. And the average does include all of our 7 schools, as well as our Transition Academy students, our students in some of our other programs. So it's really looking at all of our students in the district. So that's super exciting that parents are getting more comfortable going into Power School, filling out forms, using our online platforms. There's been a lot of work being done to help parents get comfortable with those platforms and help them use them. So paper forms for the parents who are still outstanding, those parents have at this point gotten paper forms. So we're expecting that completion rate to jump up even higher. Strategy 2 is promoting our achievements across the district, showcasing, our students, our staff, our schools, everything wonderful that's happening there, to parents, families, and the general community. I would say that this is a priority strategy in terms of wanting to see some growth here and increasing some of our storytelling about our district and showcasing our students and staff and families. But on the positive fronts, Superintendent Austin did go to the RTM meeting recently and shared some district updates. we will be distributing to families their elementary report cards. I apologize, that probably should have been on the previous slide. We're currently working on a district newsletter to share a lot of highlights with the entire community, and that is expected to go out next week. And we're looking to publish that 3 times this year and hoping to bring that up to 4 times next year. We've been doing a lot of work with the mentor program, which is a really important program here in the district, and can help students on a lot of levels. So working with mentor director Jen Anthony on some of those efforts to help spread the word, because there is currently a waiting list of mentees who want to be paired with a mentor. So we're looking to attract more mentors to the program. And in fact, we just arranged today for the day to come out, I think next week, to chat and photograph some of the mentors and mentees who are working together and who've provided those permissions. And then we're really looking to work with some community partners, some of the businesses in the communities like Pfizer and EB, to really see if this is something that they might be interested in helping us promote as, sort of a good corporate citizenship program. There's obviously been a lot with promoting and sharing what's happening at the high school with the manufacturing career pathway and robotics. And that has translated into some media coverage about the career pathways. We've also had some great media coverage on the magnet programs. And then I did just call out here that, coming up in really starting in January, we're going to be hugely focused on promoting early childhood opportunities. And there's a lot in the works with that right now. Our new student registration, particularly kindergarten registration for next school year, and also the magnet lottery for next school year. I couldn't believe when I was actually typing 26, 27. And I just wanted to show quickly, these are some of the recent articles from the day. These first 2, Groton Middle School learning students gained some exposure to learning debate skills. And then this learning outside the classroom was Catherine Kolnaski's STEAM Day. It was the first of 3 STEAM days that they're going to be doing this school year. And those were both on the front page of the day. And then the building skills and filling jobs was on the front page of the region section. The front page and I think all of these were also, what we refer to as above the fold. So really high visibility for anyone who's getting the paper copy of the paper or seeing the e-paper online, because certainly really eye-catching visuals. So it's nice that we've had them really covering several of our schools. We have Groton Middle, CK, and Fitch here. We actually had a reporter out at CB, photographer from the day at CB today. So hoping that hits the paper tomorrow. So looking to certainly keep getting all of our schools some great coverage in the press. And then Superintendent Austin had sat down recently. Actually, it might have been as far back as September, but they do have a longer lead time, the Connecticut Examiner. And that was a great story. Wonderful picture here of our Transition Academy, who, when that reporter came and sat down with her, she took the reporter down to the TA. And so that did, feature Superintendent Austin a little bit and her Navy roots, as the headline suggests, and then did talk about the career pathways and at Fitch, but then, highlighted Transition Academy, our magnet schools, a little bit of everything. So I already mentioned we're expecting some coverage, hopefully for CB. I mentioned we have a photo op already planned for the mentor program. It's a nice story, especially this time of year when we're talking about giving the gift of time to students. That's sort of our campaign that we'll be continuing with through the new year. And then next year, the Lieutenant Governor is having her coding challenge kickoff, and that's a live stream webinar that's being live streamed into classrooms across the state, and they are doing that from Groton Middle School classrooms. So we certainly expect that Groton Middle School will be, called out and featured in some of that coverage since she'll be there. Strategies 3 and 4 combined on this slide. So allocating, our district resources to really help support successful implementation of communications. Obviously, resources are always tight, but we don't have a full communications department per se. But we are certainly trying to do a lot of staff training and building our capacity that way and help build staff expertise across the district. I'm really sorry. My computer just pinged that it's about to lose its charge, which it had it full charge a little while ago. So just going to look for a charger here. We're doing a lot of targeted training on resources, on features of like ParentsWare and other tools. I think I'm good here. So yeah, a lot of sorry about that. Targeted training on the different skills, different features of our different platforms, really some best practices as it pertains to very specific initiatives, whether that's attendance or impact aid. We're creating some universal templates and things that can be used by all of the schools where they can go log into ParentsWare. They can find a template in there that they can tweak and adjust, make it sound like their own, but still, again, have some consistent language and things for across the district. And then upcoming here, we're looking to really create a district events calendar that could be helpful for parents, but more so to help support internal workflows and allocation of resources for covering events. And again, that kind of ties into our previous strategy of wanting to make sure we're showcasing, as many of our schools and students as we possibly can. And then creating and implementing feedback opportunities. There's really a lot of layers to this, whether it's online or in person, through forms or other in-person things. So, certainly our communication platforms, and I have a little data on this on the next couple of slides, are really being maximized to engage with parents, have two-way communication. And then we also have that coupled with in-person opportunities like our parent-teacher conferences, which are, providing the face-to-face, but the online is helping and allowing for ongoing communication very easily between families and teachers. I know Superintendent Austin and Anne-Marie are going to be visiting PTO meetings throughout the school year. Anne-Marie, do you want to jump in and chat any further about that, or would you like to wait?
Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure that I was unmuted. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So we have been working with the principals to see when we can have opportunities to speak at PTO meetings. But I think the other thing that I wanted to share that we've been doing is we have been taking turns, but we've been rotating through the different staff meetings. And so we've been at a staff meeting each month starting in October, but that will go all the way, but I believe through May, in which we are calling them like superintendent forums. But Susan and I, sometimes we go together and sometimes we go separately, depending upon, sometimes those are like, we're signed up for two. Like during the month of November, I believe that we were double booked. So I took I went to, forget which one I went to. I went to, I believe, Thames River, and Susan took GMS, and we've been going to staff meetings. And so we kind of use that as an opportunity to attend staff meetings. And we basically use that time to provide staff with an update about what's happening in the district. We talk a little bit about budget priorities. We give them an update. We talk a lot about what we're calling the Cradle to Career Initiative. We talk a little bit about our desire to use Mary Morrison as an early childhood center and what the vision is for that. We talk about the manufacturing center that we'd like to build at Fitch High School, and the opportunities that that will bring to students, whether they are interested in using that as a launching pad for exploring a career in manufacturing, or they just want to dabble in that before they go to college and maybe go into a career in engineering. And then we give and then we provide an update on a variety of other topics that are happening in the district. And then we provide teachers with, or the staff that are in attendance, with an opportunity, just as an open forum, ask us anything that you want to ask us about. And that's been very well received. In the past, Susan has used not staff meetings, but has gone into schools and has done like smaller focus groups, so to speak. And that has had, depending on the building, sometimes she gets a lot of, people to show up at those focus group meetings, and sometimes, it's very few. So we wanted to try something different this year. And so far, these staff meetings have been well received. And so, we've enjoyed participating in these opportunities. And, we're looking forward to, especially as budget season kind of continues. We obviously haven't really officially started yet. We've just I have started this process where the board has identified their priorities. But as it ramps up, we're obviously thinking that the staff will continue to have additional great questions for us about the process and what things are going to look like in the future. And we're looking forward to having more questions from PTO members and parents as that process continues as well. So that's that.
Thank you. I did, polls and surveys would certainly be a big part of this. We have not conducted any polls or surveys as of yet this year. But I'm sure, we will do a few, at least probably one. Certainly there's the culture and climate survey, which is the big survey that happens every spring. But typically we have, a survey around a particular topic or something we're trying to glean some insights on. And then we are evaluating and talking about some additional community forum opportunities. And I have a little bit more on that in the family engagement portion of this, if that's okay. And then our last, oops. So I did, since we were just talking about engagement and two-way communication between families, I did want to pause and just show you some data that I had grabbed yesterday. So as of yesterday, you can see that in the district, this is district-wide, between parents and staff, teachers, administrators, there's been 72,776 direct messages and just over 11,000 threads. So it does look like it takes a dip here in December, but that's only because we just started December, so that will go up. But what I think is interesting is the number compared to last year. We're certainly well past the last year was 18,000 threads. We're only a third of the way into the school year. And, at this point, we'd be on track to exceed the usage of this direct messages by the end of the school year. So I think that's great that parents are, taking advantage of the opportunity to stay in more frequent conversation and contact with their child's staff or teachers. And then a few other features that I took a quick peek at. And compared to last year, you can see auto notices is something that we're actively using this year. And compared to last year, significantly more at this point. And those are really like personalized messaging. So it may include the student's name, the parent's name, instead of sort of a mass blanket email. It's really a lot more personalized. And that can be a very helpful strategy for reaching parents and connecting with them about their child. Secure documents, we've already exceeded last year, so we're using that tool very well. Forms and permission slips are being used significantly more. We haven't exceeded last year at this point, but would certainly be on track to. Comments, we've almost already hit the total comments for last year. So that's great engagement between families who are asking questions and, whoever created the post or the message is replying to those families. So again, that's creating a great two-way dialogue. And this is volunteer hours. So while this is certainly the 701 from last year, I'm sure is not the total volunteer hours for last year. It's just the volunteer hours that were being captured in the Parent Square platform, and the number of, Parent Square does allow for tracking volunteer hours because it allows for parents to sign up for volunteer hours through the platform. So that does provide a nice measurement tool. So folks are using that as well. So a lot of good features being interacted with there and being used that hopefully is creating more dialogue, creating more two-way communication and interaction. And then our last strategy that's in the plan is communicating news and information in a crisis and being prepared to do so, making sure that we're being clear and timely. We haven't had I guess we have. We certainly have had emergency situations this year. We've had 3 significant situations involving staff or students that we had to be very sensitive with our messaging, but also, in some cases communicate an early dismissal or school closure that was unusual for this time of year or prior to the winter season. So we are, always looking at our crisis. The district obviously has a full crisis plan that's very robust and includes communications as part of that. And we always try to be sensitive and timely and collaborating with whatever parties we need to, whether it's mental health professionals or police support. As you may know, one of the schools did have a lockdown situation a couple of weeks ago that was quickly resolved, and there was no active threat, but we're always prepared to help and support with those situations. So that's it for that portion. Before we jump into the next, I'm not sure, Jay, if you would prefer if we get through this next portion and then do questions, or how you'd like to approach.
I don't know. Does anyone have any questions at this stage that they'd like to bring up about what we've seen so far? Jen.
It's really quick. You had mentioned volunteers for the mentor program. How many people are we trying to recruit? If you have that number handy. If not,
I
that's okay.
believe last I had numbers, which was about 2 weeks ago, I believe we're looking to recruit approximately 20 to 25 more mentors. I
Okay.
believe we have at that point, the program had a wait list of approximately I think it was 22 students were on the wait list at that point in time who she was seeking a match for.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
And Adrian? You're muted, Adrian.
All right. Sorry about that. I had to scroll through screens. Yeah. So one thing I was happy to hear about the calendar, um, the district events calendar. I'm wondering, last year as a parent, I don't know if it was a mistake, but for a little while, parents could see the full calendar for the year. And I'm guessing that the district probably doesn't want to put the full year calendar out too early because too much is going to change by the time we get to certain things. So I can totally understand that. But I'm wondering, for that district calendar, if it's possible to maybe have some columns under notes so that parents maybe have the whole year calendar, but when we don't know when something's going to happen in November, like conferences or something like that, maybe there can be like, coming up in the end of, October conferences, time to be determined or something like that, so that parents can kind of prepare a little bit ahead of time. Because in some schools, we might only see a week's notice or even less than a week's notice historically. And I know that's been getting better. But that way, parents, and I'll speak for specifically myself on this, just have some time to kind of get it straight in their head so they can plan a calendar that sometimes goes weeks out. So I'm wondering if that sounds reasonable or if that's something that we're working on.
Are you referring to, certainly like the district calendar from the perspective of like days off and even the days of the spring conferences are set at this point in time? But are you talking more about like seasonal events and things like that?
Yeah, well, if I were to talk about just the high school, a calendar that came out early in the year that would say, all right, well, this is back to school night, something that, well, I mean, I guess that's maybe a little too early before you're ready to put the calendar out, but events like that would say, all right, this is back to school night. This is going to be when conferences, there's I'm trying to remember what the night is called, like that starts about a week into, back to school, I guess is probably for ninth graders, but then there's what do we call that? Like a week into the
Is
There's
it
like an
open
expo
house?
night, but that just happened a couple of weeks, like last week or the week before.
yeah,
Um, but
but
like
all of
the start of the school year night. I know what you mean.
Yeah, so but I'm talking about like all of those type events and obviously like the plays and things like, the some of those events we're just not going to know. But maybe if some rough guideline or some rough dates could be given ahead of time just so parents know what to expect and it's not a surprise when they come up, if there is only a week's notice because of whatever reason. So
Yeah,
they knew that that event was coming. So
we
that I just
could
kind of
definitely bring
noticed
that feedback.
for a long time. As far as being able to plan ahead from the parent standpoint. Um, and I'm really happy to hear that the day is coming out to talk about the mentor program, and that the day is going to cover that, and also the Susan being highlighted as far as military is fantastic to hear. I mean, she is certainly an asset when it comes to military communication and military, all that we have in our community for the military. Um, and let me, oh, I guess my next thing can probably fall into the next category, so I'll wait to talk then.
Adrian, it's Jen. Do you think like maybe 3 months out? Like maybe a year's too long? Like a
I w
compromise?
Well, I would let the district make the decision on that. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just from my end, I've seen things come out where I kind of knew that they were coming just because I'd been in the district for a long time as a parent. But then I'll get a notice that it's coming in a week, and I'll be like, oh, and it might come in Parent Square or something like that. But if it were on a calendar, so I could just kind of have the whole calendar view, so I can in my head could plan out further, so I'd know to be looking for it,
Yeah.
or know that, all right, this is coming up in my schedule. Maybe I should reach out, or maybe I should check and see if there's been an update or something like that. So I think, it's great to have as much as possible, but I would, I understand that there's a lot changing in the district. So I would let the district make the decision on what's reasonable from their end.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's certainly a request and something we can have a conversation about with the schools um, and yeah, regarding the day, we've been very fortunate. We've had a lot of great coverage, and the day sometimes has a slimmer staff, and that can certainly vary week to week based on what their advertising budget is like that week. And then that determines pretty much how deep the paper is going to be, and if there's going to be if a story might have to get cut, or if it might just make the online edition and not the paper edition. But they are certainly great to work with, and are always happy to come out and when the staffing allows, and cover the school district. There are lots of great things happening on the family and community engagement front, starting with parent-teacher conferences, which were held in October across the district, and very strong attendance. I think these numbers were shared either last week or the week prior in board notes, but I did want to highlight them again as we look at this topic sort of from a comprehensive standpoint. And like I said, I think family engagement, can have those online pieces and that interaction digitally, and then there's the in-person, and there's a lot of layers to it, which is good. So elementary schools have certainly the highest typically attendance for parent-teacher conferences. I don't think that's probably a big surprise. So all the schools had over 95% attendance, which is fantastic to see. And then Groton Middle School at the three different grade levels, also very strong. You can see it was strongest at 6th grade, which again makes sense. The kids are transitioning into middle school. It's a huge transition year, and probably a little more, desire for parents to see how their child's doing and connect and get a feel for the school and all of those things. And this off teams is referring to the 6th, 7th grade numbers are all of the, I'm sorry, this should be 6th, 7th, 8th grade, not 9th grade. 6th, 7th, 8th grade numbers and are for teams. And then the off teams is like parents who chose to meet with maybe a specials teacher or a language teacher or some other elective teacher. So I think 60% is still a really strong number there because, there's some specials or electives where you may schedule a conference and others, I think in the past, like language has maybe had higher signups than say health or physical education or art. And then Fitch, we do see slightly lower numbers there. Average conferences per teacher, 4.1, with about 17% of, their time slots filled. Again, we know that parent engagement is typically going to be a little lower there. We're looking, for the students become a little more independent there. But there are some expectations where teachers are required to reach out to the parents depending on their academic grade and try to have some communication with that parent. We are hoping though to see this go up for the spring conferences. Most of the elementary, I believe all of the elementary schools and Groton Middle Schools are using Parent Square's scheduling feature, which, when you get the message that there's conferences, you can then say, oh, yes, I want to sign up and click on a time slot. And, you're going to get an automatic reminder on your phone for that. And it makes it very easy versus the approach here this fall was An email did go out encouraging conferences, but if you wanted to have a conference with your student's teacher, you needed to connect with the teacher either via email or phone call. So we think that using that scheduling feature might make the process a little easier and might make more parents apt to sign up, because as we all know, it's easy. You get an email and you're like, oh yeah, I want to do that. And then you forget and it doesn't happen, versus if you just could see available times right away, fit something into your calendar that could work for you, then you schedule it and it's there and you're done. I saw that Adrienne had a question.
Yeah, when we talk about the parent-teacher conferences at Fitch, I went to them and I did feel like there were actually more parents there than I'd seen in the past, which I thought was a positive. One thing that at least I think is a change from previous years. I know last year we didn't have a fall conference at Fitch. But the loss of teaching time, because I know at the elementary schools, it's really important that we get the parents in and physically sit down with the teachers as much as possible. But at Fitch, I think it's, obviously we want to get those numbers up as much as we can, but it would be unrealistic to think that we're going to have anywhere near the response as we do with the elementaries. So my concern is that it seems like the staffing at Fitch, we kind of did the same thing as far as times. So we opened up a lot of time slots, but in doing that, I think we either have 2 or 3 half days at Fitch now that we never had, and missing those days, especially when we talk about like the IB and AP classes where they have so much material to cover. I'm a little worried about, just losing teaching time for conferences that really aren't that well attended, and likely, obviously we all want to see more, better attendance at conferences, but I'm just wondering if we need to give that much time up for conferences. Is it worth it to lose that much class time for conferences? And I'd be curious to see if I know you may not have the answers to that, but if there's any answers from the administration, about that, is that really worth it to lose those half days in high school?
Yeah, I don't feel like I have an answer, and I'm not sure historically how that came to be, where because I do recall as well that there was a time when, the elementary schools had the half day and the middle school, but the high school did not in the fall. So I'm not sure historically how that progressed, but can certainly bring that feedback back.
Yeah, and I've heard that, from the building, from staff in the building too, that we are losing a lot of time. And I just don't see why it isn't like it was a couple of years ago, where we have one night and we didn't end up in half days because of conferences at the high school. But now it seems like we have, I forget if it was either 2 or 3 half days, but that's just a lot of classes to miss for students, especially if it's twice a year, and so we've added 4 half days at the high school that we never really used to have.
I've definitely made
right,
a note as I'm making notes. So I've made a note to share that feedback on that.
Yeah, maybe Matt could get back to us about what changed and how they're going to do it in the spring.
Yeah. So these next few slides I'm going to go through pretty quickly, but I really wanted to show you the depth of what has been happening across the district in terms of family and community events. And I think it's clear that families are feeling really connected to their schools based on what has been offered and attended. Certainly all the schools have had their back to school meet and greets, picnics, open houses, the parent teacher conferences we just talked about, Veterans Day celebrations, PTO, booster club meetings, all of those things. I did reach out to the schools and got some feedback. And this is certainly not a comprehensive list. But this just shows you sort of the creativity that's going on behind the types of events that are happening. Catherine Kolnaski had 3 great events. They also did a great job sort of reinventing the back to school open house, which is something we've been talking about. And really making it an interactive and fun community event for the families. They've had some other fun events. Their Cookies and PJs event is coming up next week, which is a literacy event. Charles Barnum had a great literacy event. They had their Student Discovery Expo, where students showcase the work that they did in their discovery clusters, which are their magnet theme clusters. Students sign up for a different cluster each trimester and create something, and parents and families were invited to join. I think they had over 100 families come out during the school day for that event. Both of those schools had a stargazing event with a Thames Amateur Astronomical Society. And about 65 families attended those, 2 events combined. So a lot of things going on from an enrichment standpoint, literacy, science, just some fun. And so that's great to see. Mystic River has had their day of play where they had a lot of parent volunteers. They had a math game night where families played games and then got to take some resources and games home, which at our last meeting, when we were talking about family engagement, we were chatting about, wanting these types of things to provide an asset, to provide a resource for families, to not say you're not doing this, to provide some value. So that's great to see. Northeast Academy had their literacy night, Camp Read Some More. They've been doing that for years. They have a couple of winter concerts coming up, their orchestra concert, their chorus concerts. They also did an adult books and banter. They did a book club for parents centered around a book. I think they had a very full group for that, was my understanding. Thames River also did a fantastic job, again, sort of reinventing the back to school night. They had about 500 attendees, which is just incredible. Families got to visit the classrooms, chat with the teacher, meet with the teacher, hear about some of the curriculum, but then really go explore the spaces, interact with some of their partners and their community, their community partners. So they're doing a great job. They have a storyteller coming out, and then they have what they're calling their Themes Night in March, which will be reading, math, and science. So the schools are all doing their sort of literacy or math nights in different ways. But really the net that we see here is they're all doing just some really engaging, fun events for their families, and really trying to build that sense of community with their students and their families and their partners. Groton Middle School, again, some of the typical things we see, the orientations, back to school nights, parent teacher conferences. They've had a trivia night. They had, they're known for their Veterans Day assembly, where they had over 40 veterans from the school community come in and participate, which is great to see. Those community members, they have quite a few plays and seasonal events coming up, their concerts and things. Their schedule is just jam-packed with those coming up. And then, of course, they also do have some sports teams. And looking at Fitch, they had their back to school nights. They had their expo night with the MYP personal project exhibit and all the clubs and sports activities fair. that was sort of the parent night earlier during the school day. I believe the 8th graders from Groton Middle had come up to visit the school. They had a great robotics open house recently showing off that new space. They have a lot of information sessions and nights. They have their athletic info nights every season. They've done early college experience nights and FAFSA information nights, and those are really hands-on help sessions for families, whose students might be enrolled in ECE classes and need to make sure that's all. So they're providing a lot of support there. And then all of their other musicals, concerts, academic nights, senior nights. So there's certainly no shortage of events happening at the school level. And for parents who, potentially have, multiple students and students in different schools, you could see how their schedule and calendar could be filling up pretty quickly, and how keeping track of it all can also be challenging. Some things that we're talking about, we are talking about doing a community forum in late January or early February, looking potentially at the February TLI day that evening, but that is yet to be really firmed up and determined. But obviously there are probably some changes coming with our early childhood center and looking to make that center over at Mary Morrison, and what that's going to look like next year for potentially 3 and 4-year-olds and increased opportunities. We have K registration kicking off in January, as well as our magnet lottery. There's always a lot of questions around those things. 2 years ago, we did a great night and we had a fantastic turnout. We didn't do that event last year, but felt like this year would be a good time to do that, to sort of explain what's happening and the new opportunities that there are, or just help parents again, if they have a child registering for kindergarten, it's their first child embarking on that. It's a huge step for both the parents and the child. So welcoming them to the district and providing that hands-on opportunity is nice. I did chat with Superintendent Austin today, and we were talking about doing a community forum potentially around the topics of sort of safety and security, both at school and at home. We were talking a lot about social media. So that was the reference to safety and security at home, and what's, what students are interacting with on their devices. So we're talking about that for winter, and think that that could be a compelling and interesting topic to the community. We do always partner a lot with Children's First Resource, or Children's First Groton, and they do have a resource fair in March. We typically partner with them on a lot of K through 8 or birth through 8 events at the beginning of the school year, and have done those, but they've had some staffing changes. And so I'm finding out what collaborations we anticipate having with them this year in light of that, and sort of what's in the queue and what we might want to plan, because those have been well attended, and partnering with them on those events has always been great and helps us get out into the community, whether it's over at Branford Manor or in one of the school buildings. And typically they help provide some maybe incentives to help parents come out, or provide dinner, which are always good draws for families to come out and spend some time with us and have some nice conversations. And then I know one of the things maybe you want to touch on tonight was what are the things we're thinking about as we're talking about family engagement, as we're wanting to connect with families, particularly families who we're certainly pulling in a lot of families and having a lot of great experiences and communication, but what about the families that we're not communicating with right now, or who aren't communicating with us or coming out to us? So whether it's attendance or some of our other initiatives. These are, really a list of things that we're trying to be very cognizant of. We're really looking at a lot of things with the tone of our communications. Like I said, those attendance letters are a great example where we're trying to move from this required compliance legislative tone to partnership and building trust and support, being more human, more personable in our communications, personalizing things to families. Again, being very aware of the tone, how those things can be perceived or interpreted, and any barriers, whether it's language barriers or other barriers to access based on devices, or transportation. There, could be a whole host of barriers. So trying to understand what those are, what challenges are that families might have, and really trying to connect with them, how we can be most helpful for them, let them know we're there to support them, partner with them, be a team, and like it says, really meeting them where they are, creating those opportunities for two-way communication. Maybe the first communication is over text. Text is still, it's overwhelmingly the favored communication. In Parent Square, there's a lot of research around text being the preferred communication in a lot of districts and being very successful for districts with families. It's very non-threatening. Sometimes somebody doesn't want to pick up the phone. People don't pick up the phone as it is, but they know it's the school. A text can be a little more casual, a little more personal, a little less threatening, gives them time to think about how they want to respond. We're not catching them off guard. And then, like with those math nights and other events, you're really providing value and support to families. So this is kind of a big bucket of just a lot of the things we're talking about and having conversations about and considering as we're writing letters, creating initiatives, creating things that we think might work. So that is everything I had under the family engagement umbrella. I just had placeholders for the other discussion items on the agenda. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Rebecca. I think back to the original communications ad hoc committee back when Lee White was on the board, and trying to think who else was on that committee. But at the time they talked about how can we get more press coverage? How can we communicate better? The things that are going on in the district. And when we look at what you've accomplished tonight, and I hope that the entire board takes time to go through this presentation, it's just amazing, what progress we've made from that point. And I just want to thank you for everything you're doing to really bring that vision to the district. That was a big hole in our in our vision at that time, and this is just a testament to everything that that you've done to increase communications and visibility and engagement. And so thank you for that. And I will turn it over to Adrian.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. Actually, I had some questions coming into this, and you answered most of them. And it seems like we've been making great strides in increasing like family engagement and communication. So I applaud you for that. And I do feel like the communication in general is doing great. So I really do appreciate what you and everyone else in the district's been doing to increase that. And I think it's going to be a benefit to our students and our families. So mostly just thank you. And I appreciate this conversation tonight.
Well, thank you. We have a great team that, we all work together, we collaborate a lot, we brainstorm, we share ideas, and like that sort of bucket I shared, we're having a lot of conversations around, trying to do all of this well and do it right and, do it in a way that we can really connect with our families, support our schools, particularly in these priority areas like attendance. Like impact aid with the budget and all of that.
Anne Marie?
Thanks, Jay. I just want to also compliment Rebecca. As she said, we have a great team in Groton. And all of us collaborate and work together. But Rebecca and I meet pretty regularly, and I just want to say that she takes such great initiative. She might come to me and or attend a meeting and hear that we're working on something related to attendance. Attendance is something that comes to mind in particular. But in the beginning of the year or in the summertime, she heard that we were going to be putting out a big initiative related to attendance. She met with me and said, "How can I help?" I talked to her about a couple of ideas, just kind of vague things, and she took the ball and ran with it. And she continues to do that with things related to attendance or just a number of things, with early childhood as we explore the Mary Morrison option. There's just been a number of things this year that she has really kind of attacked and just continues to impress me with how aggressive she's been with really trying to increase family engagement. And so I just wanted to kind of echo everybody's sentiment about how impressive she's been, whether it's been trying to constantly improve the website. I mean, in the last year, I think she's made remarkable changes and upgrades to our communications with families on Parent Square and making sure that we're maximizing all of the uses of Parent Square. Again, to our efforts around attendance and really making sure that we've had tremendous improvements related to attendance this year. And I do feel that Rebecca has played a major role in that. And again, there are so many examples that it would be hard to identify all of them. So I just wanted to make sure that I give her that credit.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Anne Marie. I I'm going to defer to Adrian for a moment. The next item, um, would you say, Adrian, that has been covered, or do you have any other follow-ups?
So you're talking about discussion regarding formation of a parent community council?
No, the update on community events and family engagement, just because
Oh
we
yeah, I
did have
thought
that
that
as
was
a
the last
separate.
kind of, I thought
I,
that was the last slide that we kind
oh,
of
okay,
went through. So I think it sounded like that was
yeah,
just part of the presentation. I guess
right. I just wanted.
I do have one quick question for Rebecca. If like on that, you said kind of meeting parents where they are, and I think you kind of already answered it by saying that we're trying to do other things like maybe meet with them on Zoom or well, I don't know if it was Zoom, but online. I think you had mentioned I don't know what platforms, if it's Google or something like that. But can you just elaborate a little bit on what we're doing there on reaching those parents that we've had a traditionally hard time with in and I don't know if it's geographically maybe because they didn't have cars to be able to get to the school or things like that. But can you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, on reaching parents who are sort of disengaged.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we're certainly trying to, the schools are all trying to reach out and connect with them, and we're providing messaging, just trying to start the conversation with them. The schools are closest to the parents in terms of understanding their situations, knowing if transportation is an issue or other things. So we are looking, to help guide them and understand from them, what some of the the challenges are. But we do want to be getting into the community in different places. Like I said, whether it's the libraries or getting over to Branford Manor, which we do a couple times a year, or other locations that, transportation might be a concern. So we don't have all, or I don't have all the answers on that right now, but it's something that we're, always looking to get more insights on from, like if we see an event that wasn't well attended, why was that? Or are they seeing the same parents coming out? And, is this a group of parents who aren't coming out or aren't responding to messages or aren't signing up for the parent-teacher conferences? So that's something we're definitely talking about and looking at and trying to understand. And for every family, it might be very different. Could be work schedules, could be transportation. So it is a challenge. It is tough. But it's something we just keep trying to make strides towards. I know
All right.
that's pretty
Yeah.
vague, but
No, I appreciate that. And I know that we can't be 100%. I think seeing those numbers that in elementary school, we're getting 95% turnout from parents on conferences. I think that's fantastic. And
Yeah.
Really, I was mostly concerned in the elementaries because I feel like just like kids have to learn, what school is and how to get it as much as they can out of school. We need to, try to educate the parents at that early stages and how important their contribution, in this whole process is. So really with the elementary schools, I mean, I'd be curious to see if there's any way to track data on, if there's, if parents had a hard time with transportation, is there a need for us to try to assist with that in some instances? I'd be interested in that in the future, but I don't think, I think, like you and the district as a whole has done a great job, like in general. So I don't want to be, kind of nitpicky on the last few things, but that was just a question. So again, thank you for this.
if I can add, we do want, so like I said, I reached out to the principals and was capturing information. We do want to start, we are starting a district trying to really quantify how many parents we're reaching, who's coming out to events. But that was my follow-up question for the schools with some of the events, and especially the schools that had multiple events over the past couple of months. Are they only seeing the same families? Are there families who aren't coming to anything? And like I said, what might be the barriers for those families, and how can we get them out? And it's important that we be positive with families, and sometimes it could be a simple, hey, we didn't see you at this event, but we'd love to see you at the next one, or we missed you at this, we'd love to see you at the next one. Sometimes when people realize that they're missed, or that you actually realized they weren't there, that can make all the difference. And will we sometimes have families who are simply disengaged? Yes, but it's our hope that we can pull everyone in for something throughout the school year that will be meaningful to them, and that they view the school as a support and a partner for themselves and their child.
All right. Again, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. The next item was from Jen, and discussion regarding formation of a parent community council. Just as a little background, we had a parent council in this district for many years. It actually started as what they called the townwide PTO, and basically the leaders and members of each PTO would get together. And very often the superintendent or assistant superintendent would be there. They would discuss things that were coming up in the district um, with the PTO leaders with the hope they would take it back to their PTOs. Um, and it eventually got to the point where the attendance was so low that the parents actually disbanded it themselves. There was no one that wanted to continue to volunteer to lead it. And so it basically just went away for lack of interest, not by anybody getting rid of it, so to speak. And in a way, for it to come back, I think we'd have to have, some parent buy-in. Though at this point, with technology, people can see meetings such as this or other meetings and see statements from the superintendent and um, other district leaders. So I don't know if there's a place for bringing something like that back. I just wonder, and then I'll defer to Jen since this was her item to bring up, whether it's something we should go to PTOs and sort of discuss with them, because it would really have to it would have to have that parent buy-in, and getting everybody together on one particular night, can be a challenge. But in any event, I'll turn it over to Jen.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking like, you know, to bring engagement in, would it be something that we could have where whether it's the board having a table, attending these events, or just having the parents communicate between their different schools. I don't know if there's a benefit to that. It was just like an idea that I had regarding engagement, and I know Jay had mentioned before it sort of died out. um, so it was just a thought. If you've seen it in other districts or if you're aware of other districts having it, whether, Rebecca or Anne Marie, any thoughts on it?
Anne Marie?
Yeah, my former district had a similar, I guess you would say similar committee, parent committee in place. It was like a parent, I guess, I forget what it was, exactly what it was called, but they took all of the PTO presidents and got together with the superintendent or myself once a month. And we met, and again, I forget what the title of the group was called, the committee was called. And I would say that it was tough because month to month it really varied in terms of the attendance, similar to probably like any PTO meeting. When we had good attendance, it was good in terms of the superintendent and myself getting good feedback from that committee, and giving us good input and in terms of things that were going on from the parents' perspective, and um, that was great. But when we didn't have good attendance, I think people were frustrated, and it was another meeting for them. And they weren't frustrated with us, but they felt frustration with their peers for not being in attendance. And, we weren't able to, it didn't seem like a productive use of time for them, which I understood.
Yeah, as I recall, the way that the meetings went, we spent an awful lot of time after the superintendent would make their presentation about things that were happening in the district. A lot of time was spent among the PTO leaders trying to discuss how they could increase engagement and attendance at their own PTO meetings, um, and what strategies they were using in terms of offering childcare, and that sort of thing. So a lot of the meeting, was taken up with how to get them to go to that meeting, and then on top of it, for them to go to this meeting. And so it ultimately ended with just a few people in the room and nobody wanting to take a leadership role to move it forward. There were absolutely no volunteers to move it forward, and so it just went away. However, obviously we have new parents out there. This was years ago that it dissolved. So, I mean, I would be open to going to PTOs and see if there's any interest in reviving something like that.
Hmm. And maybe
Rebecca?
it could be remote too, initially, or I don't know what's better. Obviously in person is good, but the remote feature is always helpful.
Yeah,
But
no,
I don't
that's
know if
true.
we're
That's
like
all.
trying to do something that's not going to benefit anything. And maybe there's something else that's better out there.
Yeah, I just think we need the parent buy-in. Um, Rebecca?
Yeah, I think I don't think it was last school year. I think it was this year before that we did do an online meeting between all the PTOs, and it was very much it was like an idea sharing session. They more so, I think, to sort of similar to what you were saying, Jay, they shared sort of what they're doing for fundraisers and what's working for them. So I do think it was beneficial between the PTOs when we had that online discussion and sort of brought all of them together. But then, yeah, they were talking about more so struggles of, getting families out and to the PTO meetings. My other question was going to be sort of, I was wondering, Jen, what you are hoping would be like the end goal of this. Would it be for collaboration between the PTOs, or more so an opportunity for parents to come out and have a discussion or provide feedback or input around a particular topic?
I think the goal was just to get parents into my thought, right? Was to get parents into the school building to get them more engaged, and and then we get to meet them as a district, and then I don't know, I just feel like if you if they know you and you know them, more than likely, like the kids will have better attendance, the kids will be more engaged, but so that's what I was sort of thinking. First came to light when I went to one of those CABE meetings. I think I mentioned this a couple times at the board, like once a couple board meetings where New London started, very small, and it wasn't just the PTOs, it was with the parents. And it was really small. And then eventually it just got bigger. And then other community organizations starting having tables there so you could see, like other types of services that people can attain. And it just became almost like not just like a school event, but almost like a community event. And I was just thinking, like, oh, wouldn't that be great to have that in Groton? Anne Marie, you might know more about it because I believe like the two individuals leading New London used to be colleagues of yours.
They were, in fact, colleagues of mine, and every time you go to one of their workshops, you learn about things that Cynthia and I did together. So I either have to call Cynthia up and tell her to not let you into her workshops anymore, or tell her that that she and I need to talk more often.
Robin duplicate. Why not if it's working in New London?
For sure, for sure.
Sounds like a field trip, Jen.
Yeah, it does. Like, I would like to know, like, yeah, I would be willing to do that. Like, on one of their nights that they have their parent night or whatever it's called, just to attend, just to see it, and interaction, and you know, so whether it's like five, even if we just get 5 parents or 50 parents, it's a start somewhere. So, and I do want to
All
commend
right.
Anne Marie, like how you and Susan are going to the meetings and getting involved and listening and all of that. So I believe that's more prominent now, or maybe it was in the past and it was just never socialized. But it's good to hear that that's taking place.
Thank you. We really enjoyed it.
All right. Well, thank you very much again. And I really hope you can share this document with the entire board and that they'll take a moment maybe to review everything that you've accomplished. Since we've come to the end of the agenda, unless anyone has anything else, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Thanks for your presentation.